Welcome back, everybody, to the Derby City Fandom podcast. Today, we're talking about one of our new favorite films, one of our more recent films to come out, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3.
What's up, everybody?
What's up? It's been a minute.
Hey, Kenny. It's been a minute.
we have survived Derby, even though I guess technically this episode's coming out after our Hamilton one.
Oh, my gosh.
This is true.
This is true. So, yeah. What are your all's opinions here about the music? I think that is probably the most defining, most important thing that Guardians of the Galaxy, any of the volumes, are kind of known for.
Colin, would you like to start?
Sure. So this film, Volume 3, for me, I think they did a really good job with the songs that were played. A lot of them were very well-known songs. You know, you got Florence and the Machine, and you got the Beastie Boys, and just to name a few. I thought they did a really good job with the songs. Now, biased opinion, this is not the best film music-wise. I think y'all would agree with me that the first one, Volume 1, definitely had the best cue of music, if you will.
Yeah. Well, I think that first film did it the best because we're introduced to the Guardians just being a bunch of lucky idiots, right? And Peter Quill is just happy-go-lucky, like, Come and Get Your Love is playing, and he's just, like, dancing along the planet surface, and he just, like, kicks some random space rat into, like, a crevice.
It's hard to beat just because of that very first song.
Right? Like, that is strong.
Yeah, I agree with you, Colin. I think the first one has the slight edge in terms of soundtrack, but this is a close second. I really loved Volume 3, the music in it. There are certain scenes that I just adored. The no we were talking before this, but the No Sleep Till Brooklyn scene, like I was sitting there in the theater in my chair and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so I'm so excited and pumped for it. And I know like the fight scene like maybe wasn't the greatest of all, but it was just so much fun and exciting to see. So I think this soundtrack was a very close second for me.
Sure. And one thing that I think I have brought up before the podcast here is that we do see like an evolution of music. We see that physically just through the Walkman becoming like a Generation 1 iPod.
Oh, yeah.
The thick old brick.
Yes.
I didn't think about that. Yeah, so they do the Walkman, and then in this
final one, it's an iPod. Like he's evolved, right? Like the spaceman is like, flying around and all of this other stuff, and he just has like this Generation 1 iPod that he picked up from somewhere.
Gen 1 iPod turns into iPhone 74 or whatever number we're freaking on now.
Yeah.
Basically, you can have your music on your phone and just listen on Spotify or
God doesn't
iTunes
even
or
know
whatever.
what Spotify is yet.
And speaking of the music, I loved. This might sound stupid and silly, but I think this is one of my favorite like trailers of all the Marvel films. Because just of the Space Hog in the Meantime song associated with it. It was so much fun and exciting, and it made me pumped for this movie. We were talking before this, but like I think Colin agreed with me that it's kind of the remix, right?
Yeah.
But it was just so good, so well made, and made me so excited and pumped for the movie that I was a sucker, man. That lured me in quite easily.
Sure thing. Now, I think this is probably as good a time as any to do our usual bit. Colin, where does this film rank?
All right. So Rotten Tomatoes, y'all want to take any guesses?
I'm gonna go with 87.
Well, let's Price is Right this.
Yeah, Price is Right rules.
85.
$1.
All right. So Rotten Tomatoes has us at an 82%.
All right, I believe it.
Okay.
It's the right ballpark.
Yeah.
For me
Maybe a
personally,
little low, but I'd see it.
For me personally, I'd definitely stay in the 8 range. I wouldn't go 7 range, but definitely the 8 range for sure.
Yeah, 9's too high, 7's too low.
Yeah, and then IMDb has it as a basically the same thing, 8.2 out of 10. So
see, yeah. This movie overall was good. It was worth the $10 to see it in the theater. Like I thought it was exciting. I thought it was really good.
Props to Kevin Feige and James Gunn for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm gonna miss him.
he's
Old
managed
Johnny.
to choose just the best songs for the moments.
Yeah, he was pretty good at the.
Yeah, I think that should be my job. Actually, is just picking songs out for movies.
Music consultant.
Yeah, I know enough about music. I think.
Nothing but Coldplay.
Yeah, no, you would not get hired.
There's not enough diversity. But so from there, Colin, I guess we can do like the quick,
General
somewhat spoiler free, and then we'll move into spoilers.
Yeah, so the general synopsis is, I'm not gonna lie here. I definitely copy and pasted this. So,
It's the spoiler free bit, and it's supposed to be. Go for it.
but still reeling from the loss of Gamora, Peter Quill must rally his team to defend the universe and protect one of their own. If the mission is not completely successful, it could possibly lead to the end of the Guardians as we know them. Spoilers.
So spoilers, 3, 2, 1. They describe it pretty well in, I think, the trailers, that the person in particular they're talking about is Rocket. Rocket is the center plot of this film.
100%.
I could have swore the entire time watching this film, I could have swore Rocket was gonna die at the end. I think there was a small part of me that was like, yeah, they're not gonna kill him off. But I was like, I'm glad they didn't, because he's by far, he's up there like one of my favorite characters on the Guardians team. So I was like, I'm happy they didn't kill him off, but I was worried the entire film that they were gonna give him the axe.
Well, it's like he's the one with the personality. You can make the argument just in terms of like other branches of media. He's the one that has like the most, I guess, representation. You don't see Star-Lord all that often. You don't see Drax. You don't see Gamora. Well, you do see Gamora in a couple of like fighting games, but I digress. It's always Rocket Raccoon, just being this weird little furry animal that's really good with tech and just has guns out the wazoo, which makes for his character being like so frail in this film very different. So I guess we'll go into even more spoilers. So the first encounter that we get with Adam Warlock is an interesting one.
Yeah, Kenny, you and I were talking before. I guess you go first, like your opinion and thoughts on Adam Warlock. I know we kind of differed a little bit, but
Yeah, so quite frankly, I think they portrayed the character as kind of a moron. Just his comic book origins, he's 1 year ahead of the Vision. I believe Warlock came out in 1967, while Vision was 1968. Mm-hmm. Now, Warlock is the first one to get the Soul Stone. Like, he is just like a robot, but he kind of learns how morality works through the Soul Stone, for the lack of a better word, in some cases. And then he just kind of goes off and becomes a basically like Space Jesus kind of character. We get like a kind of cheesy analogy slash Star Wars reference where he kind of shoves Peter Quill back into the airlock.
Yeah.
Yes, he Princess Leia's him.
see, I thought they did a pretty good job with Adam Warlock. I took it more, yeah, he's definitely a moron. He's definitely an idiot. He's portrayed like that in the movie. But I took it more as like, he's young. He's a toddler. He's a kid. He was developing. He's trying to learn. Even halfway through the movie, you can tell that it's like, man, I'm doing these bad things, and they make me feel really bad. Like, I don't enjoy doing these bad.
I don't understand why I feel bad.
Yeah, and like, so he's trying to figure it out. So I almost viewed it as, I thought they did a pretty good job as like, portraying him as this young, kind of developing youth toddler. I know he's an adult. He's, his physical attributes, like he's a grown man, but like internally, he's a little kid. He's trying to figure it all out.
Colin, what did you have to say?
No, that Jake pretty much took the words right out of my mouth.
Colin hated the little stone in his forehead.
He, the one thing that just kind of bothered me a little bit was the fact that they didn't really mention anything about the stone, because you're looking at the costume of Warlock and you first thing you notice is obviously the gold skin, but then you see that little stone right there on his forehead, like you would with Vision, and obviously that's the Soul Stone, and that's clearly not mentioned in the movie whatsoever. So,
Yeah.
in one hand, that bothers me, but in the other hand, like I can probably understand why they didn't go that route.
Right, because I guess at this point in the timeline,
It's
the
not,
souls or the stones are destroyed, or at least put back to their proper spots. And
well, I guess
Technically, they're paperweights. Right?
well,
this is true. Yeah,
they might be.
but I kind of like that is more like Quill's timeline, like that 616
Yes,
version.
the prime
Yeah,
reality or whatever
so
you call it. Yeah.
Gamora is actually dead, but Gamora physically is not dead.
Yes, it's like 5 years or something.
Wait, explain that again. So where did I can't remember. Where's Gamora coming from?
So Gamora,
Different timeline?
no.
No.
They kind of make like a jab at it just in the writing itself, that when everybody was brought back by Banner's snap, she was the only one that did not return back at like the original time. Like her particular, like, I guess, resurrection came back before they ever met as like the Guardians. So this was Gamora still being like the Thanos kind of lackey.
Yeah.
So that is why Quill is so like beat up about it, because legitimately she has no memory of like the past like 5-6 years because of some Soul Stone shenanigans, which they make the jab at. It's like, I don't know what happened. Everybody came back, but you came back different. Which is a bit weak, I feel like.
And then they started to make implications that he may have feelings for Nebula.
Oh my gosh.
That was funny and super awkward. I loved it.
It was very cringe, and you have really dark eyes. Yeah, they were taken out by my father who tortured me. And he's just
well, he chose a great color.
I was nervous that they were actually going to get those two together.
No.
I was watching this when I was watching the movie. I was like, oh my gosh, they're gonna write this.
Nebula has too much self-respect for
Peter Quill let's get together. So I'm glad they didn't, but I got nervous. I thought they were gonna try to do it. And I was like, oh boy.
Yeah. So this film is much heavier just in overall tone. We see that with Rocket, basically, like, animal cruelty mixed with eugenics.
Yeah.
Like everything that the High Evolutionary does is just not supposed to sit well with you.
Yeah. I guess let's talk High Evolutionary first, Kenny.
Sure. Let's go that route.
So what was your thoughts, and you, Colin, what was your thoughts on his character and his portrayal in the movie?
Well, I liked how they portrayed him, because while he does have like several different personalities over the various comics lines, one of the ones that is usually always there is that he's super obsessive. Like, he has a goal and he wants to accomplish it, and he doesn't care what he does to get there. Mm-hmm. In this particular case, he's trying to figure out why Rocket is the only one that came out the way he did, when everything else he has done has failed. This one random raccoon was able to fix the problem.
Yeah.
And that just stuck with him.
So it sounds like you really liked him. So it sounds like you really liked him as the antagonist for the movie.
Yeah, I mean, he did a better job than Warlock did being an antagonist. But then,
that I agree with. I didn't really care too much for Warlock.
But the acting was great. I think his lines were well delivered. The character was believable. I appreciate that his like replacement face is like stapled on.
Yeah, I mean, it honestly looks like it's just bad prosthetics. Like,
Which is weird because of like the weird like gravity tech he has, but then he just has like a face like sticky taped to his head.
yeah, like it literally looks like it was just glued on, and then one little slab just, comes unglued, and then it's just peeled right off. And
Like a peelable face, like ugh.
Like it honestly, like his face reminded me a little bit of Red Skull, a little bit.
Yeah.
I got Red Skull vibes. That's what I was thinking when I saw it.
Yeah, I definitely got Red Skull vibes, and just seeing the mouth move, I'm just like, well, that is really cool and gross at the same fucking time.
Right.
I really liked him as the antagonist character. And the reason I say that is I loved not his backstory. I loved that he didn't have this like repetitive, overarching, like, oh, I'm going to take over the universe. Like, to your point, Kenny, it was this obsessive goal. Like, he was just obsessed with this goal of creating the perfect creature, society, or being, or whatever.
Well,
and
all
that,
three,
and,
actually.
and, that was it. Like, he wasn't trying to like dominate the world or get all these soul stones. He was just upset. He's like this mad scientist obsessed with this one goal. And to your point, like, he didn't care like who he impacted or what. And it was just like he wasn't out for world domination. He was just out for this stupid mission that he was on.
Yeah.
I like that. I thought it was kind of simple and stupid and primitive, and it made it fun for me. It was just, sometimes these movies, like the plot can get
too much,
and it was nice to kind of reel it back a little bit and have this character where he's like, man, this guy's very powerful, but he's not too powerful. It just, you can tell it's like this one kind of subplot of like, yeah, we got to stop this nut job.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but when the trailer first came out, it seemed like, we were getting the whole Rocket vibe. Something was going on with him, but it seemed like from the trailer, I could be wrong, I haven't watched it in a while, but it seemed like the main antagonist in the movie was just going to be Warlock. They didn't really show the High Evolutionary in the trailer. Maybe they did for like a brief second, like
I don't think they did.
But false advertising. I'm just kidding.
No.
But I agree with what y'all said. I just got sidetracked there.
Yeah, this goes to show that the Guardians always manage to fight the particular villains that like far like outclass them, and just somehow just kind of like, through the power of friendship and teamwork, basically just like save the day. Canonically, the High Evolutionary has gone toe to toe with like figures like Galactus.
Right.
I think he meets Thor sometime.
Probably.
I think he fights Thor at some point. I don't know. Maybe I got that wrong.
In the Hulk.
Yeah, that's like one of the earlier lines of the comic when they're kind of first introducing the guy.
I will say, there's only one thing I didn't like about this movie.
Okay.
And you've mentioned a couple times, Kenny, that parts of the movie was kind of heavy, kind of dark, mostly because of the High Evolutionary, like just like him doing science projects on animals, like the animal abuse and like Rocket's backstory. Like, it was clever how they all connected all the dots and whatnot. But I tell you what, as like an audience, especially coming from the first two films, especially the first film, it's very happy-go-lucky and upbeat and funny and kind of stupid. Like, they're stupidly like saving the universe, to a little bit more serious. And I get it's the end of this trilogy. It's the final chapter. So it can be a little bit more serious. But like, just from an audience perspective, like, that's the one thing I didn't really care for too much, because it was almost a little too dark for me at moments.
Yeah. Now, you bring up an interesting point about connecting the dots. In the first film, one of Rocket's bigger emotional bits is that he says that, hey, you all have not been taken apart and put back together like I have. Mm-hmm. And then we're introduced to Nebula, who's
literally taken apart,
basically done the same thing, but has gone from like, something that was already like cognizant and like free thinking, like I guess a human, like that has like humanity, where Rocket basically had that put in him.
Yeah. Nebula even says like, yeah, like they're showing that little hologram of like, or the video of what was being done to Rocket, and she's like, yeah, things that were done to me as well, but it seems like he had it much worse, or something along the lines of that. So I was just like, wow, hearing that from
Nebula of all people.
Pessimistic character, or an angry character.
Explains a lot about Rocket. I'll tell you what.
Yes, which
now it was fun to like the more brighter scenes, like seeing him as like a little young raccoon, like stuck in the cage with the other animals, and like seeing him like kind of grow and like how he becomes really into technology and building weapons and figuring out like the engineering behind all of it. Like that was kind of cool. Like I love the character development. I love the story, but man, it was tough to watch some of those scenes.
Sure. And one of the brighter moments was, well, brighter / darker moments is like when he has like his triumphant, like, I am like who I am. Like, F off, mate.
Oh, I love maybe I'm skipping ahead too much, but like I love the ending when he finally becomes Raccoon.
Yeah, right, which is what I'm getting at. He sees the plaque and he sees like, okay, he's actually a raccoon. In all the previous films, he never calls himself a raccoon.
He denies it.
He denies
the first one, he's like,
denies
what's a
it
raccoon?
vehemently. But I think that might also be because he just didn't know. Like at that point, he's not like a normal raccoon. Like he's something different. He knows that.
I mean, Thor calls him a rabbit. He's called a squirrel.
Yeah,
Rodent.
like the only time that I remember reading something that the only time that you don't see Rocket get super angry is with Drax, because Drax says it in a well-meaning way, because I mean they make fun of it throughout the entire film, which I think was one of the bits that was
say?
Like he calls him like a rabbit or like a possum or something in like the first film, and he just kind of plays it off and kind of smiles because he realizes that Drax is an idiot.
This is true. This is very true. So I want to backtrack a little bit.
Sure.
So we are basically introduced to the Guardians at nowhere.
Yep.
So little backtrack here. So the Guardians end up going to nowhere and getting that from the Collector at some point, right?
Yeah, so I think that the Collector basically, I don't know if he canonically got killed by Thanos, but they were there, right? And he gets the stone from him. So that's the last you see of him, was just in that first film.
Yeah, so basically they go there to rebuild it and make it like this.
It's like their HQ, I think.
Like
HQ
/ just like,
where I'm going with this, they're trying to make it their own little like utopia, their own little community, their little refuge or whatever.
Sure.
And so basically the people that had their homes destroyed could come there and just do their own thing, family kind of vibe, whatever.
come hang out in the skull of a dead god.
I liked it. And I liked it that they kind of teased it with that Christmas special. So I liked the
I didn't
whole
watch the
concept of
Christmas
it.
special.
That's where I was headed to next, is if you hadn't watched the Christmas special, I think it came out back in November. So if you hadn't watched that going into this movie, there's a little loss of context, if you will, like how are we at this point, what's going on. But if you had watched the special, which was more of like a whole mini movie jab at Kevin Bacon, if you will, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, but if you hadn't watched it, you wouldn't really know what's going on. Does that make sense?
Sure. Okay. But I love that they even kind of like allude to it. Like the High Evolutionary gets in an argument with his own people. It's just like, maybe we shouldn't play God. It's like, well, the gods are dead and they don't exist, so I have to take their place.
Yeah.
And then you see Nowhere, which is the severed head of a celestial.
Yep.
Like one of the few celestials to have died, which died through All Black and through Null and all that. Fun fact. Which is why I was so disappointed with what they did with All Black. Anyways, it was fun seeing, like, after he says that, you just see the head just come out of the warp, and it just has like this telescoping cannon.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that.
I thought
That was a good moment.
that was really cool.
Kraglin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even he has like his little moment, like of trying to learn the whistle needle thing.
Yeah.
It has a name. It has to have a name, and I just can't think of
I
it.
can't think of it. I didn't. What'd you guys think of? Shoot, what's his the old captain, the blue guy?
Oh, Yondu.
Yondu. I didn't really care that they brought him. I mean, I see why they did it. I think it was kind of easy way out.
It was an easy way out for the moment.
Like this Jedi kind of like, oh, come on, but whatever.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I like Kraglin trying
I mean,
to figure out the whistle. I like that it eventually did. I thought that was fun to watch.
Yes. Oh, and Cosmo is
Oh my
a
gosh.
good dog.
I love Cosmo.
Yes, which she's fun because she makes references to like past like historical stuff.
She's Guardian now.
She is a guardian, but she references like Sputnik 2,
Yes.
the first animal sent out into space by the Russians. And you also see her like doing like poker at a table, of which you see Howard Duck
Yes.
there, who was part of the collector's, I guess, collection. And he's just like out and about doing his stuff. Like basically have become like a Ravager, just there, just as a fun little aside. It's just like, oh hey, there's the duck, just as a fun nod.
And one little like side note, back to the holiday special.
Okay,
That's when Mantis reveals that she is Quill's half sister. So if you hadn't watched the special before the movie, you wouldn't have known that.
no, you would have actually, because it shows up in the second film. Because Mantis is one of Ego's daughters, but just didn't have the same sort of capabilities, the same sort of, I guess, like connection that Quill did. Like she was like a failed copy, and her whole shtick was that she kept Ego like asleep.
Well, I guess for some people, maybe me, I don't think that connection was made.
That's fair. I mean, we've gone on record saying that the second film wasn't the greatest. Unfortunately, Ego was like the best part of it.
I agree with you, Colin. I think you don't necessarily need to watch the Christmas special to watch Volume 3, but by watching the Christmas special, it helps. And it makes it more enjoyable and better to understand. Unless you don't care about, like, how the hell did they go back to nowhere or whatever. But I think it helps to kind of connect some dots, and it makes it more fun for the audience.
And since we're on the Mantis spiel,
Her character arc is odd.
Yeah.
so here's how I feel about that particular character.
Go for it.
In all of the movies, did not care for that character whatsoever. Honestly, worthless. If that character was not in any of the movies, I don't think any of the plot would have changed whatsoever.
Sure. Now, in this film, I think more than any, she's just there to be like his only family member, like actual family member.
But what I was going to say for this particular movie, I think she grew on me just a tad bit.
Sure.
Mantis
Because Mantis, yes.
I think Marvel as a whole, they're trying. I think she's going to play a bigger role, for better or for worse. I don't know. In the future. I think she's going to have a much larger role to play in the MCU.
I think she's done. Like, spoilers, the band breaks up.
You don't think they're going to bring her back? I mean, they literally just showed her get those, like, giant monster
Right, but they also made
Abilicus
a
or
big
whatever.
deal about her wanting to
Do her own thing.
do her
figure
own
out
thing,
who she is.
Really?
figure out her own thing, because throughout the entirety of her inclusions in the two films, she says it. It's like all of my time I was either listening to Ego
Listening to the Guardians.
or listening to the Guardians, but I never did anything for myself.
Yeah.
So,
I agree with
So
you.
you
I
guys
think
don't think we're ever gonna see her again, huh?
Nope.
Other than like maybe like silly cameo or something. Wow.
possibly,
Maybe
but
it- maybe
it's
it-
not going to be significant. It's just
No.
going to be like a nod.
maybe a cameo.
Wow. I took the completely different approach. I was like, man, I think she's gonna have a larger role, but
Oh yeah, no.
now that I think about it, like I don't know, maybe you're right.
Like, she plays a much larger role in this film than she did in the second one when she's first introduced, which is weird because of what her character was supposed to like represent in that second film. And in this one, you actually see her use her powers to like a handful of like comedic effects, and then a handful of like, okay, this is how like, you know, her special like empathy powers like work. Being able to pacify a bunch of like teethy squid monsters and be like, hey, they're actually afraid of us, but because they can't talk and they have a bunch of teeth and tentacles, like, you know, they're super threatening looking.
I think they're called like a Abilicus or something.
Something like that. But they're like,
Billices.
yeah, they only want to eat batteries. Like, you know, they just
I completely
want.
forgot that they were from the second, like the very beginning of the second.
Yeah.
That's who
Yep.
the gold people, whatever their name is, hires them. To
Yeah,
kinda...
that's when Groot does his little dance.
Oh, let's talk about Groot.
You want to talk about Groot?
Let's talk about Groot. Do you guys like Groot? I love this version of Groot.
I am confused with Groot in this film, mostly because of the first introduction and their confrontation with Adam Warlock. I thought it took a while for his body to grow back.
It does.
Which is why like he was like tiny Groot for a long time. But unless there was like an undisclosed like period of time that passed between. No, there couldn't have, because they only had 48 hours.
I don't remember what happened to the beginning. Does he completely?
He
like,
goes
get cut
down
in
to
half or
his
something?
head.
Yeah, he basically engulfs Warlock with his limbs, and he basically just drags him into the ground through buildings and whatnot. And then next time you see Groot is his head and
His head,
it's
and he has a
walking.
couple of like limbs, like, and his head just kind of like crawls off.
Well, he grows back fairly quick in the first one. If you remember, he gets his arms cut off. And they
Sure.
grow back fairly quickly.
Yeah,
I don't know. I mean, I guess it could be.
there's no
a
rhyme
hole
or
in the
reason
plot,
to it.
but I don't think it's that big
Yeah.
of a hole.
it honestly reminded me of this is what I'm looking at right now is the walking head with like the robot arms from Toy Story.
Oh yeah, with,
yeah.
If you all want to know what I'm talking about, just Google like the
I can throw up a quick picture right here.
yeah, do
There
that.
you go.
But
I like this group. I liked him more. I think that's part of the reason why I hated the second one so much too. Was it's like he was just. I mean, he was cute. He was fun to watch. Like this little,
Like, it's another one of those
teenager
things
playing a Game
where,
Boy, little, sapling kind of. But like now that he's grown up and he's part of like he can fight and he can be part of the schemes, and I really enjoyed it. So I much more enjoyed this version of Groot, like kind of being
the adult,
older and adult and
adult version of Groot.
big
yeah.
Groot or whatever. But
Yeah,
I liked him. Who do
I'm
we
on the
miss?
fence.
Who do we miss? Doc Rocket, Groot.
I mean,
High
we,
Evolution?
I mean, we could talk about Chris Pratt dropping the freaking F-bomb.
Drop the F bomb.
Yes,
Yeah.
when they're talking about when he's trying to get Nebula into the car.
Oh yeah.
It's like, open the fucking door.
it's like, what do you mean you don't understand how the door works?
I mean, I thought it was very comical the way that once they got in the car and they're up, the camera's up in the ship with
Gamora.
Gamora and the poor driving ability going through the yard, and
It's just like, well, like, like one of the best like space pilots doesn't know how to drive like
Yeah.
an automobile is funny.
yeah.
I like Counter Earth in general.
Counter Earth.
Yeah, I thought it was fun to watch. It's fun to
Man,
see.
you know they just went to like Chicago or something.
Yeah, but
And
well,
just
Some little neighborhood.
because they pull in and Purecourt's like, what the hell? Is this Earth? And then like there's instead of the Statue of Liberty, I think it's like a version of the High Evolutionary or whatever.
it is, and
With a monkey.
with a monkey. Yeah,
The whole thing's just like silly and stupid, and then like they're trying to go to like his spaceship, and they're seeing like some, I don't know, cockroach head thing,
cockroach
selling
beating up a
drugs.
porcupine, selling meth. Like, just a cockroach selling meth to a porcupine, and the
I
deal
do agree
goes
with
bad.
y'all. All the fun little small jabs, like when Drax is like trying to sleep on the couch, they're all sitting around this dining room table. Like, it's like that's not what it's there for.
It's like, well, then why is it here? It should serve more than just one purpose.
What was that scene where? Oh my God, they're cracking jokes at Mantis or something, and Drax just steps up and goes, "Mantis, you asshole."
Yeah. Drax had some great moments in this film.
Yeah.
He definitely played, like, I would say that he played a bigger role than Quill did, basically, in this film. Or he's like
a bigger role.
Quill was like
On
a depressed
par.
drunk for half of it.
He was drunk in the
in
beginning.
the first scene.
No.
But
He's not drunk for the entire movie. He was drunk in the beginning, and that was
He was
it.
drunk in the beginning, but he was depressed for most of it. Seems like the entire
He-
time.
Wouldn't you be too? A girl that you love doesn't love you anymore, basically.
I know. I get it.
like, your girl died. Your girl came back, but 5 years prior to you all ever meeting.
You gotta restart everything.
Speaking of
Like
Gamora,
51st States. Anyways,
did you guys like them tying Gamora to the
back
Ravagers.
to the Ravagers.
Ravagers? Yeah.
I have mixed feelings on that, actually.
Yeah. I don't think they necessarily needed to include her in the film, but they needed to give Peter Quill something to work for.
Peter needed some closure, huh?
I mean, yes. Or at least his like attempts to like try to reignite the flame or whatnot. But
It would have been weird if they didn't have Gamora. on the
they
film.
needed something else there to pair up with Rocket's story. And that's, I guess,
Yeah.
the closest we get, right?
Good old Sylvester Stallone.
Oh, gosh. His inclusion is odd. They paid a couple million for him to say all of, 10 lines.
Must be nice.
4 lines.
I'll get that job.
It must be nice.
I mean-
to have Sylvester on your side. It must be nice. Sorry.
I understood that reference.
I hope so. I really, really hope so.
So, one of my nitpicks, I guess, with this
We're
film.
moving on to nitpicks.
We can.
That's what we have been doing, I guess, this entire time. But go on.
Yeah. Moving on to actual nitpicks. I'm not sure if I'm a fan of the bread costumes that the Optic Corps or whatever.
The what are they called? Orgoscope?
Orgoscope, yes.
Orgo Corp.
Yes,
That's
them.
what it is.
But their costume design is just awful.
Stupid.
It's bad.
You know what?
Like they look like bread loaves. Like they look like the urban cheese bread that you get at Subway.
Yeah.
That whole
And they had those little things that pop out.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
that was
scene
baffling
was-
to me.
that whole kind of section of the movie was a little weird. Like it wasn't bad. It was all right. It just felt like it was kind of like a plug. Kind of like they had to keep the plot going on, but I don't know.
So, y'all remember in the movie when they put their suits on and they go out the door and they're about to land on the surface of Orgoscope or whatever the fuck,
Sure, yeah. The weird fleshy
and
bits.
they're all kind of just floating there, and they're all basically all facing the same direction except Mantis, who's in the orange suit facing the opposite direction. And then they shoot the lasers down to reel them in to the surface, and then they put their magnetic shoes on or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
that's what Mantis does. And basically, she just like lands on her neck. She does that later again. And
Yeah,
maybe
she does
when
that a
she's
couple
dropped
times,
into
which
the
is
set,
funny.
Like she's literally like dropped onto her neck, and you hear that little snap, and I'm just like, God damn!
Yeah.
Like they are treating Mantis like fucking garbage in this movie. Or something. Like, is that intentional? If it is, it's freaking beautiful.
Part of me really wishes that the stunt double just had like a bad time on like some wires or something, and they just kept it because it was
Kept it in the
comedic.
film.
I can totally see that happening. For sure.
That would be great.
So I was really curious about the whole orgoscope kind of spiel because I wasn't too familiar with it, so I had to Google it.
Sure.
So this is what I found to basically get a more clear of an answer, but it's an organic bioengineered entity grown, owned, and operated by the High Evolutionary and his public-facing company OrgoCorp. It's literally a planet-sized hunk of tissue that happens to house OrgoCorp's headquarters, which we already know, where the company's daily operations take place and where information like rockets file is kept secure, and the sensitive intellectual property is guarded by Orgo sentries, one of whom is Nathan Fillion's frustrated foreman, Master Karja. Remember that guy? Yeah. I thought that was kind of funny. A little bit. Just a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I feel like that needs to be mentioned.
But sure. Yeah. I enjoy the idea of like, the pseudo organic space station kind of thing. Not a fan of the bread suits. I'm sorry. That's what kicked it down like a couple points. It's just like, oh, come on, guys. You didn't think about this.
And off topic, but the girl with the pixie haircut or whatever.
Oh,
Uda, is that her name?
Oh gosh.
I don't know.
The pink girl.
Where you going with this?
The hostage
Yeah,
that Gamora takes.
she's kind of attractive.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, God.
She was pretty. Her eyes were pretty. I mean, they were like gold or
It's like he wasn't lying necessarily when Peter was like
Colin.
hitting on her the entire time.
No, but he was also
He
trying.
was, but
He was trying to prove a point.
yeah. Which I
It
think
worked.
is funny. He's just like,
Worked.
just leave it to me. I got the silver tongue. Let me work my magic. But before that could ever happen, Gamora just pulls a gun, shoots somebody in the leg.
We're not shooting people. Stop shooting people.
It's like, that's not us. It's like, I'm not with you all. It's like, that's not us. Oh.
This movie definitely had its moments, gold moments for sure.
What do we miss? Want to jump to the ending?
Well,
Miss anything, Kenny?
not in particular. I guess we can just go down the plot line. It's like they catch up with the evolutionary. They have the fun shenanigans where we see Groot grow wings.
I see that. I thought that was awesome. I was going to ask you all your thoughts and opinions on the kind of, I don't know how you describe it. Like, I compared it to Harry Potter when Harry like sees Dumbledore in like this weird kind of heaven white train station.
The near death experience.
The near-death experience for Rocket. Did you guys like that? Do you think that was trying to lead into something else? Like, do you think there's... What was your thoughts on that whole scene? Like, do you think there's more to that scene than we realized? Or do you think it was just more of like just a near-death experience, kind of Harry Potter-ish?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it was more Harry Potter-ish. Like, he's getting to that point of a near-death experience, about to cross that, let's call it a
Threshold.
Threshold, exactly. And, the otter chick, whatever,
Lila.
Yeah. They basically interact because 100% like Harry Potter, they're having their little interaction. Can I come with you? Absolutely. And he starts to step forward, but it's not your time yet. There's more for you to do, this, that, and the other. And then that's when
he comes back.
He comes
regains
back, and it
consciousness.
turns out he's not really a Horcrux. Or sorry.
Yes, Rocket Raccoon's no longer a Horcrux.
He's no longer a Horcrux. But yeah, no, that was more of like a near-death experience, and I did enjoy that little white scene. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I guess just because of how these movies play out, you know what her line is going to be.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, you can't actually come. And that's when you know that Rocket is going to be fine. Like right at that moment, you know Rocket's just perfectly fine and nothing else in the film is really going to happen to him. Because it's his triumphant return from the dead, basically.
Yeah. I liked it. I thought it was. I was just curious if you thought there was more to it, or if I missed something. But maybe it was just kind of like this near-death experience, and that was their way of bringing Rocket back. I really liked it. I thought it was,
Yeah. Well, they needed
cool.
to basically show that Rocket is still like willing to live, even with his shitty life
Yeah.
up to that point, or at least his shitty life with the high evolutionary and basically everything prior to Guardians 1.
All right. You wanna do closing thoughts?
I want to talk in credit scenes.
Oh, okay. Let's do it. Let's roll.
So let's start with the middle one, which I think was like the new Guardians.
Sure, yeah.
What are your thoughts on what's coming next? Don't, excluding Peter Quill. We'll get to that in a second. I think that was the final one was him, Peter Quill, but like the one where they're on the planet and Rocket's kind of the captain or whatever.
So
Is that the new Guardians team? Do you think they're going to have a movie with them, or do you think they're going to throw them into kind of the King Dynasty Avengers stuff? I'd be curious because, what's his name? The Ravager that has the whistle. Kriegel.
Kriegel.
Isn't that James Gunn's brother? So, do you think he's done?
No.
Like the actor, you think he's going to stick around, or
He's probably they're all gonna come back. I just don't know how. We're obviously not done with Warlock. There's no way we're done with Warlock. We can't just bring him in for 1/16 of a movie and then be done with him. So I'm really curious what we're gonna see with Warlock and the other characters for sure. Yeah.
is my understanding? I think Cosmos. I think he plays a big role in the comics, doesn't he? I think he does.
Adam Warlock?
No, Cosmos, the dog.
I don't remember if she does or not. I'll be honest with you.
She. Sorry, what did I say?
You said he. I was gonna correct you on it, but
She.
Yes. She is a good dog.
Yeah.
she is a good dog. All the kisses.
Yeah. I was curious if they're gonna make more Guardians movies. It was end of this trilogy, but doesn't necessarily mean they can't
I
keep it
don't
going.
think they will. If they do, I think they might try to approach like a mini series / like I guess Disney Plus series kind of deal, like what we got with like Loki, where
That'd
it's
be
kind of
cool.
like the side adventures,
Or
right?
like a spin-off kind of thing. That'd be cool.
But
I'd be a fan of that.
you'll probably see them in like a what if scenario.
I liked how they wrote off some of the characters that we knew for whatever reason. The guy who played Drax, he was done.
Batista.
Batista didn't re-up the contract, so they needed to figure out something.
I know the woman that played Nebula, she was done. So I liked how they wrote everybody off. Like they didn't kill anybody off, which I was fine with. But then they kind of gave everyone, a happy ending, but it was in the right way, I think. So like Gamora kind of she does her own thing. We already talked about Mantis. She does her own thing, and then even Drex and Nebula, they're still back on nowhere, and I thought that they did it well, writing those characters off. But then leading to the final credit scene, did you guys like Peter Quill chilling on Earth? That makes me the most excited because at the very end they say Star-Lord will return. So I don't know if he's going to have his own trilogy, obviously, but my theory is he's on Earth. So I think that's like their way of connecting him with what's going to be the next phases with the new Avengers and whatever they want, because he's back on Earth. So and on top of that, be curious in thoughts, because I was reading some kind of spoiler thing of he may or may not be the only person on planet Earth that knows who Spider-Man is.
Correct.
So I'd be curious on how that all plays out too. So I think there's a lot of fun that they could do with Peter Quill being back on Earth.
Quill,
Carol
Danvers knows.
Carol Danvers, yes, would know. Nick Fury.
Nick Fury knows.
Carol Danvers.
Marvel.
Captain Marvel.
Um,
Anybody not on planet, because the spell in particular was
Thor would
on
know.
planet. But I don't think
There's a handful of individuals that know.
Yeah.
So I love that they brought Peter Quill back on Earth. Yeah, it was nice to see him like reconnect with his grandpa and whatever, but I think it just opens so many doors for the writers. I think it's gonna be fun to watch what they do with him.
Yeah.
Because I think he's gonna stay on Earth. I that's my theory. I think he's gonna stay on Earth, and it's gonna be fun to see who he reconnects with.
Well, it's like they pulled an Iron Man 3 where they say Iron Man will return. Like, okay, he's going to return in like an Avengers film.
Yeah.
I don't believe there's going to be another Guardians of the Galaxy.
No.
Not for a while.
No.
Not for a long while.
No, he's going to be in a group film, essentially. I agree.
I'm fine with that. I think it'd be fun.
Oh, yeah. That's like, they say it at the end of the film. It's like the Guardians are not like dissolved. They've just changed leadership.
Yeah.
Like the original band basically wanted to do their solo career.
That's one way of putting it, for sure.
Yeah. And they're trying to figure things out. Will we see them again? Probably. Are they going to get their own dedicated film like they got here?
No.
No.
And I'm fine with that. I'm just super excited that he's back on Earth, and it's going to be some fun things for him. I really do hope that they do something with him and Spider-Man. That's my hope. I would love for them to reconnect, like him just chilling in New York and the Bronx or Brooklyn or whatever.
Tom Holland is just like, oh, hey, Parker,
He's
what's
just like,
up?
hey, man, what's going on? How you been?
Oh, gosh. All right. Well, everybody, I think that's a good place to end there. So thank you for listening to our lovely little podcast. You can find us on most of your podcast streaming services. Find us on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. We got some groups there. Colin's always putting something out.
I want to do a post-credit scene.
Okay. So I guess, you know what? We can do that. I'm going to roll it, and then we can do a post-credit.
See you, everybody.
All right. Post-credit scene.
You know, something that I really, really enjoyed in this particular movie, we had mentioned it before in the Dungeons and Dragons episode, but when the actors came out before the movie and that little recording of
that thing.
saying like, hey guys, thank you for coming to watch and support this movie, blah, blah, blah. Like, I really enjoyed that. And so they did that for the beginning of this particular movie of Guardians of the Galaxy. So that's something I really enjoyed. And I wish they would do that more.
Fair enough, man. All right. Have a good one.